right now is Mr. Anil Swarup, Secretary at the Ministry of Coal. Mr. Swarup, of course, since this government took over, has been the face, front and center as far as the coal industry India is concerned. From a situation of shortage of coal, even as recent as 3 years back, we are in a situation of surplus. Some say it's a good problem to have. Let's discuss that in a little bit more detail. Mr. Swarup, thank you very much for your time, sir. Prashant this side, appreciate you joining in. I've been reading, you've been saying that, well, this lack of demand, weak offtake, etc., these are all very temporary. Weak power demand, these are all temporary. Things will pick up. That sounds logical, sir, but it's kind of alarming. A couple of years back, power sector, industry plant load factors were as high as 75%. It's dropped to about 60% right now. Just take us through what your analysis of the situation is and where are we at now?
Let us first understand the fundamental demand that I keep saying that there will be increase in demand. If you look at the per capita consumption of power in India, it is at the level of late 19th and early 20th century in the US. Even today, it's much below even what goes on in China. And since we are growing anywhere between 7 and 8%, the belief is that once this, as we grow further, there would be demand. Now let us understand, why is this demand not getting articulated if there is this demand? This demand is not getting articulated because of the poor financial health of the DISCOMs. They are not in a position to buy power because they have a terrible financial state of affairs. And it is in this context that the entire Uday scheme was launched. Now Uday is kicking in, as you might have read and heard. Bonds are being floated by the state governments. The loans are being taken over by state governments. There would be some time before this starts impacting on the demand. When I say demand is there, but it gets articulated through these DISCOMs. Once the DISCOM's financial condition improves, they will start demanding more. So I have absolutely no doubt that the demand for power will increase. Once that happens, the PLF will increase, and PLF can only increase by demanding for more coal. So that's how we are looking at.
Right. No, so if you look at it, so Uday has only helped things along in the positive direction, right? I mean, if you look at the power demand from even DISCOMs before Uday, when the financial situation was far worse, the situation is only improving now. There seems to be discrepancy. Your point seems logical, but my question is it only the weak DISCOM health that is the spoil sport here? That is part number one. And part number two is that the government is also focusing in a very big way on solar power now, right? I mean, you've got big targets out there.
Yes.
Right? And the cost of solar power has also come off quite a bit. I think, what, 4.5 rupees or so. Yeah. How is that going to impact? I mean, we are talking about some big numbers on coal, some big numbers on solar, and the underlying situation of power demand being weak. So put it together for us, sir.
You have to understand the overall space that is available. If I'm saying that we are presently at the levels of late 19th and early 20th century US, the per capita consumption, the demand space is huge. It will not merely be fulfilled by solar or thermal. We'll require a lot of energy in future to meet our energy requirements. So I'm not very perturbed about the solar energy coming up. In fact, that is how it should be. A lot of space in the demand space will be occupied by the solar energy. It's good for the country, it's good for the environment. But I don't think it's going to eat up the space of thermal power. So in that sense, I think once as you very correctly pointed out, the primary problem is with the DISCOMs. It is not that even now if you go to interior areas, there's a lot of load shedding that is happening. So on the one hand, we are sitting on a lot of power, a lot of coal. On the other, there is a demand that is not being met because there is a lot of load shedding that is actually happening in a number of states. Now, if load shedding is happening, meaning thereby that there is a demand, but the state DISCOMs are unable to supply power. That is where Uday comes in. So I'm very clear in my mind, it is because of the financial health or poor financial health of the distribution companies that we have this shortage of demand. The second point we must understand is, on the one hand, this demand is not getting articulated by the DISCOM. On the other hand, there has been a stupendous increase in supply of coal from something between 1% and 3% growth during the 2010 to 2014. We certainly had 9% growth last year. And we had an inventory, we were sitting on inventory of 56 million tons at the pit heads. So the coal supply has grown so much that probably it was not anticipated that so much coal will come, because that was not the historical evidence. But Coal India seems to have done very well, and that's where the coal came from. I'm very hopeful that the discoms will recover as a consequence of a lot of effort that is put in the context of Uday. And once that happens, we'll have demand. Now, if you don't plan that way, then we could be in trouble once the demand increases, and suddenly we'll fall short of coal again. So that's how we're preparing.
Good morning, Mr. Swarup. On the subject of the shortage of demand, would you then alter your FY17 production as well as offtake targets? Because right now, while there is latent demand, right now there is still a shortage of demand.
No, what we do is, in coal, we prepare for that target that we put in mind. We have to be prepared. Suddenly the demand emerges, say 2 months down the line, demand picks up. And what do? You wouldn't have been prepared. So you have to remove the overburden. So what we have done is we've gone ahead with the removal of overburden. The actual mining has been kept suppressed a bit. But if there is an increase in demand, we'll supply that coal. Now, as far as the target is concerned, our target is basically ensuring that whatever is demanded is available. We prepare according to a demand that we fixed for, say, 16-17, which we fixed at, if I remember correctly, 598 million tons. We are moving towards that, but no one stops us from reducing production as we've done in the past, in case the demand does not rise to those levels. But to say that you reduce the target and don't prepare for it would not be the correct approach, because if the demand does arise, which it should arise, then we will be found wanting.
All right. Hi, Mr. Swarup. Nigel on this side. Sir, you were talking about the state discoms. Just want to get in a couple of questions. We had a comment coming in from Mr. Piyush Goyal. He said that the government is working to eliminate coal import for state discoms. As of now, what are the numbers we're working with? How much do they consume? I mean, in terms of import, is it 30 million, 40 million? Because that will directly shift to Coal India if we stop imports. And also, is there any potential that Government of India companies, Central Government of India companies, could they as well totally stop importing coal?
Absolutely. That's what we are working on. We are working on an import substitution strategy.
Yeah.
This strategy for public sector undertakings has already been worked out. It's been in operation. Henceforth, to know whether state or public sector, central public sector undertaking will import coal, all their requirements shall be met by Coal India. So that's a space that we are trying to occupy. We are also working on a strategy for the private sector. We are trying to understand why are they importing coal when coal is available here. We know some of the reasons ourselves, because some of the boilers at some of the plants cannot accommodate the quality of coal that is available. But we are doing a much detailed exercise. We are going into each of the plants that is importing coal, and our strategy, because that's the space we see. So long as the discoms do not articulate that demand, at least the demand that is being met through the import of coal, that is a space that Coal India could occupy. Now, as far as the numbers are concerned, it may not be appropriate for me to say that we are targeting so much. It will all depend on the quality of coal that they're importing and the capability of the boilers to accept the Indian quality of coal that is available.
Right.
Our job is primarily to see that the coal or the quality of coal that can be made available should be made available from within the country rather than enabling it to import.
All right, Mr. Swarup, what is that number? But in the past, what has that number been in terms of imports from state discoms as well as state governments? And also, what is the number? I think NTPC, they've reduced their imports drastically. Prashant tells me that it's down drastically. So could you give us those numbers, what it was in the last year and what has it come down to?
Off the cuff, I don't remember the exact number, but this much I know, that NTPC has taken a decision not to import a single ounce of coal. So that's the decision that was already taken. And no import for NTPC is happening. So where is that coal coming from? It is all coming from Coal India. Similarly, the other public sector entities that are importing coal have decided not to import coal. We've had discussions with them, and this decision has already been taken. But as far as private sector is concerned, it is much more complex. So we are trying to work out a strategy and see how we can come in that space where coal is being imported.
But I think,
I'm sorry, I don't immediately recall.
With global coal prices jumping up, I think that also works to the advantage of Coal India, right? I mean, that's a big one.
Absolutely.
But you're not giving us specific numbers, that's fine. But as you said, NTPC is completely stopped, which means they're dependent on you. A couple of years back, and I just come to the quality of coal. I mean, 3 or 4 years back, there was this huge spat between Coal India and NTPC with regards to the quality of coal which Coal India was supplying. I mean, generally, the quality of coal here in India is, lower as compared to other parts of the world. But even then, the issue was charging for a certain grade of coal and NTPC not quite getting it. There are some reports, again, which suggest the issue has arisen once again. that even as you've ramped up production hugely, the quality is a big issue now. Go on, sir.
We recognize this fact very clearly, that if we are going to supply coal and if we are going to charge for a different grade as compared to what is being supplied by Coal India, it won't help in the long run. Consequent to which a regime has been put in place, a third-party quality check is now being done, and the payments to Coal India is based on the report of the third-party quality check. And that's working very well. Between NTPC and Coal India, there have not been any report in the recent past with regard to grade slippage with regard to NTPC. So that's working very well with them. It will not merely apply to NTPC, it would be across the board. In fact, in the long run, to build the brand of Coal India, it is absolutely imperative that not only should the coal production go up, but the credibility of the coal or the quality that is being supplied is restored, and everyone gets the quality of coal which they charge for. So that's what we are very clear in our mind. I think the focus is on ensuring that there is no grade slippage.
All right, Mr. Swarup, very quickly, last question from our end. Then, JSPL's blocks, they were deallocated, then they were taken up in the courtrooms as well. The financial health of the company is deteriorating as well. What's happening on that front? We haven't heard about it, I think, for the last year or so.
It's in the court, so I would not like to comment on it. They have to take a call on it. Once the decision gets taken, we will do what the court says.
Right. Mr. Swarup, paucity at times, I'm going to slip in a few more rapid fire, hopefully. What is the target for this year, sir? What are you going to do, essentially, in terms of coal output this year?
No, we'll continue to do what we are doing.
So you did 534 last year. This year was what?
Yeah. We are looking at 598 million tons.
And you'll do 598, right? You took price.
We are moving towards that.
What is the share of e-auction volume, sir, overall? Now, and where do you see it by the end of the year?
I would not know that. I think Coal India, I'll have to get that figure from Coal India.
Okay, price increases. You took one. You took one in May.
Sorry?
You took price increases earlier, right? I mean, Coal India took. Any more plans for more increases later?
None this year. None this year. None this year at least. Yeah, none this year. Yeah.
Mr. Swarup, just one final question. What are the current inventory levels of coal? How many days of supply?
Right now?
Yes.
Average more than 20 days. More than 20 days.
Across power plants?
Yes.
Okay. Just one last question, and this is really the last one. We're being greedy here. I just go back to the solar power issue, right? This is in a way substituting. You gave that example of power demand being where US was in the 90s. That's fine. But at that point, there wasn't this big thrust on solar in the US, right? But here it is going to be competing. In the case of coal, fixed cost, I mean, you're basically only paying for variable cost, which is ₹1.50 or so. The fixed cost is all already been accounted for. I mean, I agree, solar is great, focus on renewables, but it is coming at the cost of, it will come at the cost of coal. Wouldn't you agree, sir?
See, I don't agree, because at this point in time, there is no replacement happening. In fact, if the demand does get articulated as it should through the DISCOMs, we will be short of supply of power. If you do the real calculations, the way we have outages in the field, the way power supply is not being made, it is because the demand is not being articulated. There is demand, but it's not getting articulated.
Mr. Swarup, thank you very much. It's a pleasure having you with us here, and thank you for patiently answering all those questions. Great getting that perspective, so thank you. Let's slip into a very quick break here. We will come back and we will discuss market technicals. Ashwini Gujral of ashwinigujral.com is going to be joining in with his top trading ideas. Back in 2.